right. All right, let's give it another minute or so as folks flow in here on Talk Tuesday. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We will go ahead and take another minute or so to let people join. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us where you are joining us from this morning, maybe your role, something you are interested in learning about as you think about social, emotional, and intellectual SEI habits this morning. Good morning, Patrice. Good morning, Melissa. Nice to see so many familiar faces here today. Good morning, Kristen and Miranda. Nice to see you all. Good morning, Emily. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. My name is Caroline Calhoun. I am a professional learning and attendance specialist at EdAdvance. We are the Regional Education Service Center in the northwest corner of the state where we are enjoying our first snowfall of the season. So thank you so much to my team. I'm joined by Dahlia Assem and Jaron Havel, both very happily working from home today remotely because our office is closed due to the weather. And thank you so much to our CSDE partners. I'm joined today by Jay Brown and Kari Sullivan Custer from CSDE. Thank you both for being here, and to our presenters. We have Christine Peck joining us from CES in Trumbull, and we have Jamie Okarma joining us from Ridgefield School District. So we are very excited to hear their expertise shared with us a little bit later. So let's go ahead and get started. If we could go to the next slide, please, Jaron. As always, we wanted to share some highlights and happenings with you from the attendance world. One item we wanted to bring to your attention is there is an organization that is recently founded called Attendance USA. This is the first national initiative that's solely dedicated to addressing student attendance and absenteeism. It is sort of an offshoot of the international network of school attendance, which I had the pleasure of presenting at their conference last fall in New Orleans. So this is the US chapter of that. We encourage you to take a peek at their website. There's lots of great information and some names that you will recognize from the national scene when it comes to attendance and engagement. So FYI, that is a new resource for all of us. Next slide, please, Jaron. And a shout out to our colleagues in Danbury Public Schools. They have done an amazing job curating and creating some really wonderful resources, brochures, toolkits, all about attendance. And many of these resources are also translated into multiple languages. So we wanted to share these because with their permission, they said anyone is welcome to adapt this to your own district and local context. Just a heads up that some of that information is specific to Danbury. Other pieces are really universal, but if you do choose to adapt any of these materials, just kindly cite Danbury's resources, but we hope that that is useful information for all of you. Next slide, please. As many of you are familiar, CSDE launched a campaign, the School is Better With You campaign. I guess that was 2 winters ago now. And all of these resources are available free on the SDE website. The portal is linked there for you. But this time of year, we wanted to draw your attention to our When is Sick, Too Sick for School flyer, which is available in both English and Spanish. It does a great job giving families information about guidelines around when to send a child to school or not, which we know that this has been particularly confusing post-pandemic as we navigate all of those pieces of when a child can really show up, even if they might have the sniffles, that sort of thing. So please feel free to download that. Again, you're welcome to adapt it to your district as needed, but that resource is there for you, as well as many other resources on that site that we encourage you to check out. Next slide, please. We wanted to share with you that the Yale School of Medicine is putting on a virtual conference. It's coming up next week on December 8th. So, this is all around improving school climate with emotional intelligence. And this dovetails nicely with our topic today that Christine and Jamie are presenting on. So, there is a link here for you to register, but they are really planning to share a whole host of tools and insights about how to embed emotional intelligence into school climate initiatives. And we know that the research tells us that a healthy school climate is what gets kids to show up every day to school. So we encourage you to register and attend this conference if you're so inclined. NAFC, the National Association of Family, School, and Community Engagement, has a new report they published through their partners at Learning Heroes. This is all about how to center families in the future of education. There's over a decade of research and collaboration that is shared in this report, and it has a wealth of information, including actionable strategies about how to strengthen those family school partnerships as the landscape of education continues to evolve. So check that out. It's a really interesting report with lots of helpful information. All right, next slide, please. NAFC has also published a new report from their partners at Families and Schools. And this is all about addressing chronic absence among Latino kindergartners in the Los Angeles School District. And they shared a host of insights from parents about how to inform solutions around chronic absence with this population. And the report called for strengthening social emotional supports, really deepening family engagement, and ensuring that communication about attendance is very clear, it's accessible. And I love this quote from their superintendent, who noted the key to solving chronic absenteeism is listening to families, which, again, this isn't novel, but it's just a very good reminder for us about what works and how that partnership is so key. Next slide, please. A California school district went all in post-pandemic to invest really in comprehensive school counseling, and they reaped the rewards of this. They've been able to reduce chronic absenteeism and suspensions because of this leaning into comprehensive school counseling. EdSource published a piece all about this work, and it's, again, really helpful. I encourage you to read the article and learn from the successes in this district. Next slide, please. All right, some great news. After nearly doubling the rates of chronic absenteeism during the pandemic, we're finally seeing steady signs of improvement nationally. NPR, on their All Things Considered segment, published this piece about different state policies that may have helped this work and why fewer students are missing school now. So I encourage you to take a read or listen to that. Again, really helpful as we think about policies that are helping drive this work. And lastly, I wanted to share with you an item from the most recent Marshall memo on November 10th. And this was all about different advice and recommendations from therapists that were interviewed by the therapist who was interviewed for this article, Angela Haupt. This was published in Time Magazine. And these 5 tips I just thought were really interesting to keep top of mind for our students, our learners, and this kind of advice for students can really go a long way as we think about what helps our students show up every day. And I love that last one. You are loved for who you are, not what you do. So feel free to click on that and read a little bit more about these tips. With that, I'm going to pass it to Kari to share some data, which is really positive, and some FAQs from the field.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here today. I hope everyone who's getting snow is someplace warm and safe. I see a lot of new names here, Caroline. There's over 100 people on Talk Tuesday already this morning, and so I just want to welcome those of you who are new. I'm Kari Sullivan Custer, and I am the state lead for attendance and engagement. Caroline Calhoun is we call her the executive producer of Talk Tuesday. And she helps make sure we have all of the most recent resources and the bright spots in the district so that we can all learn together around this challenge of chronic absence. My colleague Jay Brown is also here from the Bureau of Special Ed. So Jay, thank you for being here too. I've started a new kind of feature this year, FAQs from the field, and I do get the same questions more than once. So I thought it might be helpful to start focusing on some of these questions on our Talk Tuesdays. So this question is, when is a student counted as in attendance? And for many years, the State Board of Education has had a definition of what in attendance means. So a student is counted present. It's a half day rule, right? When they participate in at least half of their scheduled instructional day in any of the following ways. Now, this was updated, I think, in 2022 or 2023 with the remote learning option. So if they're in school, physically present at their assigned school for half of the school day, they're at a school-sponsored activity, a field trip, or other approved school activity that's sponsored by this district or the school. They have authorized remote learning, and that must align with the standards for remote learning for grades 9 through 12. I think it's only 9 through 12 who can do remote learning, but that is a program. That's not a one-off kind of like, okay, now you can remote learn. No, they would be in a remote learning program. Some of our districts do have them. Um, also, students who are suspended or expelled are absent unless they receive an alternative instruction for half the day. So the next question tends to be, next slide please, Jaren. So what counts as a half day? So a half day equals half of the student's scheduled school time for that specific day. Because student schedules vary, half day is based on the time that student is expected to be in school. So if there's a school-wide late arrival or early dismissal day, like today for many districts, if the school day is 4 hours, a student must be in attendance for 2 hours to be marked present. If a student has some sort of a flexible or individual schedule, then they have to be there for half of that scheduled day. For instance, or if there's a half day program, it's very similar. Like we used to have half day kindergarten. So if a student's expected to be in school for 3 hours, they must be there for an hour and a half. And this takes some, really tightening up on our tracking attendance policies and practices. And a lot of districts and schools, especially high schools, struggle with tardies and how do we handle tardies. So what they're doing is they're making sure students sign in and sign out in the main office so that those attendance records can be updated to reflect accuracy. So I wanted to share this with all of you. This is available on the chronic absence webpage with a lot of our other resources. And just pause for a second if there's any questions in the chat or anyone want to ask a question. I'm not seeing any.
There are a couple
Um,
of questions, Kari, about the virtual piece,
yes, yes.
asking about if we can only offer virtual for grades 9 through 12. What if an eighth grader is home waiting on an expulsion hearing?
Mhm. I understand that virtual learning is only for 9 through 12. I think it's supposed to expand over time, but I don't think it has yet. So I would stick with the 9 through 12 at this time. Um, and for high school, is this only for scheduled instruction time and not so it's the whole time. So you don't have to get down to Haley, you don't have to get down to, well, we have to subtract a half hour for lunch, or they were in the nurse's office for 20. It's from the time they enter the school to the time they leave school. And that should help make it a little bit easier. And I see a hand raised. Lucindia?
Hi guys, I just have a quick question. I'm not for sure if you already answered it. When it comes to tardies, I know maybe I'm showing my age or whatever, but I remember a long time ago, if you had a certain amount of tardies, it equals up to absences. Is that still accurate?
That is not accurate for taking daily attendance for the purpose of reporting to the state. That's daily attendance. But there are local policies for credit that if a student is tardy to a class so many times, they may lose credit in that class. So there's the state daily attendance report, which is what I'm talking about. But then there's a local class level attendance taking. And a lot of times in high schools, I see a question about kids who skip classes. Attendance is taken by class period. So if it's a block schedule and a student has 4 classes in a day and they went to 2 of those classes, they would be marked present.
Now,
Um,
so for
Go ahead.
elementary school, so like I'm an elementary school social worker. So like I see, for example, we have I have a student may have like 40 tardies.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're always like,
Yeah.
tardy, but they're tardy. I guess the parent we're trying to figure out like after you get a certain amount of tardies, do those tardies turn into absences?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. And I would work with that family to find out what's happening that's making them tardy. It probably has something to do with a family issue like work or transportation. And so you don't want to punish the child, especially in an elementary school, for something that they don't have control over. I also want to warn folks about tardies and punishment because if you start to punish for tardies instead of welcoming and saying, we're glad you're here, when it's time to make a decision to either be tardy or stay home, they're going to stay home. So I want you to be careful about tardies and not deal with them in a punitive way, but to find out what's happening with that family and build a relationship so that you can help them understand that you're there to assist whatever barriers you might have or to understand what's happening. If students are sleeping in class, I would have that referred to the school nurse. I would make sure that student is addressed in a way that is looking at that child as a whole child and finding out why they're sleeping in all their periods. I would not take that as a punishment approach for a student. Um, so I'm gonna skip on because of time. I'm gonna go. I'll try and go back and answer questions as I can. But I wanted to just share this good news with everyone. So the October chronic absenteeism data month to date, which we publish every month starting in October on our district attendance dashboard, which is linked on this slide. This was 13.3 for the whole state. That is amazing. And you can see here how these are October chronic absence rates, which is a good indicator of a strong start for the school year. We also know our September average daily attendance was much higher than it's been in previous Septembers. So we started the school year really strong. And I want to thank all of you. And we also know that we have a long year ahead of us and that the hardest months are coming with the weather and sickness and all of that. But if you go to the next slide, I wanted to share that the Hartford Courant wrote an article. Her name was Liv Stannard, and she did a lot of interviews with districts and a lot of research. But one of the things we're seeing in Connecticut is we continue to decline statewide, including a strong start. Progress is widespread. We saw most of our largest districts reduce their chronic absence in October significantly. There were some districts that went up, which were trying to learn what's going on. But we're seeing meaningful gains, and 80% of our districts are seeing chronic absence go down. So 13% is getting close to our 10% pre-pandemic level, and so that we're getting warm. And so our gains reflect consistent relationship-centered work by schools and districts, and early interventions and monitoring are make a difference. Next slide, please. So what's working? The secret sauce from districts is strong tier 1 culture and communication is driving success. daily responsive use of data. Attendance teams, we know they're strong. I know they're strong in most of our districts, are reviewing patterns early and rapidly following up with families within the first 10 days. Tier 2 supports, LEAP home visits continue to have an impact. Mentoring and wraparound service. I can't emphasize enough collaboration with health and community partners, your school-based health clinics, especially as we start to get into this period of illness. The current article underscores that Connecticut schools are actively bringing students back through relationships, outreach, and flexible supports. And I just want to add, again, that reinforced student health guidance. Caroline shared our one-pager that's really simple and easy to read with clear messaging about when to stay home and strong communication between families and school nurses. So take a look at that article. They interviewed Waterbury, Hartford, Bridgeport, the people who did the LEAP evaluation, the folks at UConn NEAG school. So it's a really interesting article. It's a little long, but take a look at it. The link is here in your slides. And I think that's it for me.
It is. Thank you, Kari. Next slide, please, Jaren. Kari is not sharing that she was also interviewed for the article and is quoted in the current article. So thank you to Kari for all your expertise, and we encourage you to take a look at that and read it. As always, our Connecticut Home Visit Hub, managed by CREC and our colleague Nushet Black-Burke, is open to anybody interested in a 101 home visitor training. The next one is coming up on December 10th. The registration link is there for you. And my last slide for you all is, next slide, please, Jaren, all of our Connecticut resources that we want to highlight in one place so you have them at your fingertips. Bright spots, information about the PSIS reference guide, our EdSite data portal, really a whole host of resources there. And with that, I am very happy to introduce our presenters for today. First up, next slide, please. We have Dr. Christine Peck is joining us from Cooperative Educational Services in Trumbull. She is a school psychologist, a behavior analyst, and a program administrator. And Christine leads comprehensive efforts to strengthen MTSS and social emotional learning across a number of districts. She has more than 30 years of experience, and she is widely recognized not only locally and regionally, but also nationally for her expertise in assessing and identifying autism spectrum disorder. Christine was named the Connecticut School Psychologist of the Year in 2022, and she's known for her commitment to building effective systems, to elevating professional practice, and really advancing student well-being through evidence-based practices. So we are so happy to have you here, Christine. And Christine is joined by our colleague Jamie Okarma, who is the Social Emotional Learning Dean at East Ridge Middle School in Ridgefield, Connecticut. And as the SEL Dean, Jamie is responsible for the implementation and coaching of restorative practices for the school, as well as all behavior interventions, MTSS systems. She's their school climate specialist. And prior to becoming the dean, Jamie spent many years as a special education teacher for individuals requiring intensive special ed services. And she's also worked as a behavior analyst in home, clinic, and school settings. So we are so happy to have you both here to share your expertise, and we will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much. Jamie, are you going to grab the control of the slides?
Sure.
Pardon us while we
No worries.
make a quick shift. Reporting from the part of the state where it is not snowing. It is gray and icky and rainy, but like an icy rain, but no snow here.
Excuse me, sorry.
It's all good. All right. Go up a couple. Yeah, one more. There you go. Can you put it in slideshow mode? There we go. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Jamie. So As Caroline had mentioned, I'm from Cooperative Educational Services. We are the RESC program down in the Lower Fairfield County area. Jamie is representing one of the districts that we have done quite a lot of work with over the years, and we wanted to share with you just a little piece of the work that we do around incorporating the SEI habit document from the Connecticut State Department of Education into the MTSS work that we do, largely in a tier one framework, but also as we move into identifying the need and providing supports at tier two and tier three. And as was mentioned a little bit ago, we do know that improving school climate and culture through our MTSS systems and all of our school climate work does improve engagement and attendance for students and for staff. So today we'll quickly explore how we can implement the Connecticut State Department of Education's guidelines on social, emotional, and intellectual habits within an MTSS framework. So we highlight that when we talk about student success, we often isolate academic grades and from personal growth, but today we'll show you how we use this document to provide a blueprint for bridging that gap, ensuring that all students create habits necessary not just for the next grade level, but for life. And I popped into the chat in case you're not familiar with it. Can you go to the next slide, Jamie? Thank you. I'm clicking here and it's not working to go over there. In case you are not familiar with this document, it's really a fabulous tool that was created by the Connecticut State Department of Education about, a year and a half, 2 years ago. So the document serves as a very comprehensive blueprint for understanding and integrating social, emotional, and intellectual habits into the everyday academic experience of students from kindergarten through 12th grade. The primary goal is to ensure that students develop the essential personal habits that are required for academic achievement, college and career readiness, as well as everyday life. Can you go to the next slide? So let's start with why. So if you look at the components of SEI habit document, the first thing you'll notice is that this work and this approach is not designed as a quote add-on program. It's not something that we schedule for 20 minutes on a Friday and this is when we're going to do our SEI work or our work on these skills. The core mission here is that the work is very holistic. The state has identified that academic achievement is inextricably linked to personal well-being. If a student cannot regulate their emotions after a setback, then their math grade will suffer. If they cannot plan and organize, which are executive functions, then they will not be successful in a science project. So the work that we do, our goal is to use these guidelines to help students to achieve those habits that are necessary for their future, whatever their future looks like. It's about building a human being, not just building a student that can take tests and complete academic projects. Next slide, thank you. So what does this look like in practice? The philosophy here is integration, not isolation. And the habits and working on these habits and developing them should be woven into the very fabric of the school day. We like to use that term, woven into how we do things. So in core instruction, when a student is solving a complex math problem, for example, they are practicing persistence and cognitive flexibility. We need to name that for them. We need to tell them what they are doing and help them identify the skills they are working on and developing. In specials, such as in PE, they are learning collaboration. In art, they're learning self-expression. All of these things relate to the SEI habits. In their daily routines, they are learning how to transition in the hallway, how to greet one another. These are very basic elements of social awareness. So the instruction is not happening isolated from learning. It's happening during learning, and we can integrate all of these lessons and these habits into the things we're already doing throughout our day at school. One of I think the strongest features of this guidance is that it recognizes development as a journey. The document is split into two distinct phases. So we have a set of guidelines for kindergarten through grade 3, and this is when we are building foundations. We're teaching students to identify what an emotion is, what it feels like, and the very basics of sharing space with other people. In grades 4 through 12, as students mature, we shift to a more complex application. We aren't just identifying emotions anymore, we're managing stress during high stakes testing. We're not just sharing toys, we're navigating complex social dynamics and online interactions. So the visual here, I created that, just hold on one sec, pretty on purpose to represent a continuous line of growth. So if a high schooler is struggling, it often means we need to go back and look at the foundational skills that may not have been developed fully along the way. So we can't isolate just skills in a higher grade without looking at the continuum of how that skill should have developed over the course of time for that student. The document categorizes this set of habits into 4 key pillars, which are depicted on this slide. Emotional intelligence, we call that the heart. We're looking at things like, can a student read the room and understand what's going on in the room around them, as well as can they regulate their own anxiety. The second pillar of self-perception, this is the understanding one's identity. Does the student believe they can learn? Do they have a growth mindset? These are things we need to encourage. The third pillar is cognitive habits. This is the brain of who we are. These are your executive functions, planning, memory, focus, logic, things like that. These are often the missing link for bright students who struggle with output. How many times have you seen a student who we know they can do the work, but something is not happening? There's something that is missing between their ability and what they produce. It often falls in this area of executive functions. Finally, social skills. This is community collaboration within the school. So it's collaboration, it's conflict resolution, it's understanding and displaying empathy for other individuals. So these 4 areas are very interrelated. You cannot have strong social skills without having strong emotional intelligence and lots of other ways that they are very interconnected. So having great content through a document or a guideline like this is wonderful, but we also need a structure on how to deliver the learning and the teaching that we are trying to impart to our students. So this is where MTSS comes in, your multi-tiered systems of support. We have used this SEI document as the content that fuels our MTSS framework. So tier 1 is, you can go ahead and move. Tier 1 is our universal instruction. You know this probably. It is what everybody is getting in school. In this framework, we are building systems where tier 1 means that every teacher is an SEI teacher. In addition to whatever grade or content they are teaching, they understand they are also teaching SEI habits and skills and understandings. So we use the documents, the SEI habit documents, indicators of evidence, which are deep in there. I didn't open it up. We just don't have enough time to dig too far into it. But we use the indicators of evidence that are in that document to align our lesson plans. So let's say you're a science teacher. You can explicitly teach attention to detail as a cognitive habit as you're going through your science curriculum. So the tier also reminds us, and we rely on adult modeling. We cannot ask a student to be respectful if we as the adults are reactive and punitive. We cannot ask them to be organized if our own instruction is chaotic. So in order to do tier 1 really well, it requires us as the teachers and the adults in the rooms to really look at how we are presenting and look in the mirror and model the habits that we want the students to engage in as well. So there's a whole self-reflection and self, process where we are making sure we are providing models of what we want the students to achieve. So despite good tier 1 instruction, some students, as we know, will need more, and that's where we come to tier 2, a more targeted view of providing support. And here we use the SEI Habits documents learning progressions to identify gaps. So this is where Jamie's going to show you some really neat things that she's created. And we look at where a student is achieving or behaving or showing us where they are at with regards to these skills. And if there is a gap between where we expect them to be developmentally, that gives us really significant information to help us plan for the need for tier 2, as well as what tier 2 supports are appropriate for this student. So let's say, for example, a student is consistently disrupting class. We don't just say they are having bad behavior. We're going to look at those progressions that have been outlined in the SEI Habit guidelines and looking to see, is the student missing a skill such as understanding and reading nonverbal cues. So we're looking to see where gaps may exist in the development of these habits that may be connected to the behavioral output we are seeing in the classroom, and looking to see, is the behavior they are engaging in different from where we should expect them to be based on their age and developmental level. So we're going to use data, maybe from a universal screener, to group these students. We have to look at some way to represent where students are with regard to these skills. And maybe we find when we do our universal screener that we have several students that are struggling in the same areas with regard to these learning progressions. So then we may develop some tier 2 small group instruction that are meeting specifically to work on things like self-management or goal setting or organization. And these are targeted, time-bound, and very skill-specific kinds of supports. That's the identity of tier 2. Then for some of your students, a smaller percentage that have the most significant needs will move on to tier 3. And this is where we need to do more detective work. We often look at the precursor skills that are listed in that document, the SEI Habit document. And even if the student is, let's say, in 10th grade and they are reacting with the emotional maturity of a 2nd grader, then we need to go down and look at those kindergarten to 3rd grade level indicators to support and rebuild the foundation for that student. So the document gives us a guide or a blueprint for how we can develop the skills and provide supports for that student. We tend to use precise vocabulary from the document, using terms like active listening or cognitive flexibility to write IEP goals if the student is eligible for special ed services, or when we're writing behavior intervention plans, we use that terminology so that our most intensive interventions are measurable and grounded in this developmental science of the document. So finally, how do we know if it's working? You're talking to 2 BCBAs here, or you're hearing from 2 BCBAs here, psychologists and BCBAs. We rely on data. So the state document does reference the DESA system, and we know lots of districts are using the DESA as a really good, powerful tool to measure need and growth in students. We know many of you are using other things. This is not an exhaustive list. I just created this very short list of things that I see out in the districts. Panorama is being used by several of our district partners to capture both student voice through climate surveys, as well as helping us to develop some indicators for needs and also progress monitoring. Similarly, the SABRS, I think you call it, the Social, Academic, and Emotional Behavior Risk Screener, which is a nice screening tool for risk factors, and the Student Risk Screening Scale, the SRSS, which is another efficient option. Maybe you're using one of these, maybe you're using something else. It doesn't matter. Regardless of the specific tool, the goal remains the same. We are trying to on one part, shift our language away from using the terms behavior problem or target behaviors or skill deficits. And we're trying to use data to identify needs and developmental gaps, and also progress monitor and celebrate progress that doesn't always show up on a report card. So we can use those data over time to measure how the student is responding to intervention and what potential impact we're seeing in the classroom. So that's kind of the basic overview of how we are using the SEI Habit document, which I think I forgot to mention, is also aligned with CASEL. And many of you are using CASEL as a framework for understanding social emotional growth in students. And we have found it to be a really great tool to make the work that we do data-based and systematic and able to be progress monitored for student success. So I will turn the floor over to Jamie. And like I said, Jamie is one of our district partners, or Ridgefield is one of our district partners who has done quite a lot to in this area and built some really great things for their district. So I'll stop blabbing and Jamie, take it over.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm excited to share how we're currently utilizing the SEI Habits document. To be honest, I feel that we're still kind of in the infancy of the process because there is really so much that you can do with a document like this. Without further ado, I will reshare and represent. Sorry about that. All right. So currently Ridgefield is utilizing the document. It's really been instrumental in guiding the development of our current process, as well as particularly in the area of how we speak about behavior in a way that is clear and objective. And also it's been helpful when identifying areas of need as well as goals for intervention. So our process in Ridgefield, we have separate SEB meetings in our MTSS process than the academic MTSS. And that's so that we can really have detailed conversations about behavior. We only have a certain amount of time in the public school system. So we made the decision to separate our academic MTSS meetings from our SEB meetings so that we weren't pressed for time when we were talking about the student. We are utilizing the areas of development, the learning progression, as well as the indicators whenever we are kind of entering a student into tier 2 or tier 3 intervention as well. I wanted to show kind of how the components of the SEI Habits document fits into the CASEL framework. So I actually bring a visual like this to our MTSS meetings because we really want to make sure that the language that we're using across all staff is kind of bridging the understanding of our tier 1 SEL programs and our tier 1 SEL goals in the 5 CASEL, the big 5 CASEL areas, and how the SEI documents, the 7 focus areas fit into the CASEL Big 5, if that makes sense. So in the green areas are specifically from the SEI document and the SEI Habits document, and of the blue areas are the Big 5 CASEL areas. At this time, I'm just going to show you kind of the way we use it as an assessment tool. Can you let me know if you can see this?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So what we did as a subcommittee is we took the document, and we put it into a Google spreadsheet and to develop an assessment tool. So what you can see are the 5 areas of the CASEL framework, as well as the in the bold, the 7 areas in the SEI habits across, and this will be the same across all grade levels. In the less kind of the, I guess, dimmer colors, those are the learning progressions. And so everything that's on the document, we kind of dissected and created kind of a yes/no assessment tool so that when we're discussing with the multidisciplinary team, we can speak with everyone to figure out a focus area for the individual student. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit so that you can see how we're utilizing it. This specifically is just the middle school progression as well as the indicators. And then we also did the same thing for the late elementary years. I am specifically just in the middle school, which is why kind of we're just working from this part of the document. However, it is definitely possible to do at the elementary level and the high school level as well. And then, of course, the document includes commonly used vocabulary and definitions, which I think has been very important in kind of keeping the discussion clear and objective and using common language across all areas so that we're really capturing the focus areas of the student in a way that is professional and objective. And then the other document that was created was really for progress monitoring. And so this is essentially the a similar document, but with a drop-down menu for any of the focus areas. So we use this if we have already identified a goal that we're going to be working on in intervention so that we can just kind of simplify which areas we're particularly working on during our intervention cycle. So for us, our behavior intervention lasts, a 6 to 8 week cycle. And so this, and we have lots of documents that are shared across the multidisciplinary teams. So we want to make sure that we're identifying the goal so that everybody is kind of aware of what we're working on. And then, of course, if after the intervention cycle, either the goal has been met or not met, we can make our decision from there. With this too, each individual area we've developed kind of a specific data collection spreadsheet or method to determine whether the goal or focus area has been met. And then if the student requires us to choose another one from the document, that's what we do. And then we enter into another intervention cycle. Okay. So those are the two main, I guess, documents I wanted to show you as we develop or as we continuously improve our MTSS process in the area of SEB. So at this time, I wanted to open up any questions that you might have regarding the documents.
Thank you so much, Jamie. My team will keep looking through the chat and to see if there's any hands raised, but it strikes me what a deep dive you all have done and the work that has gone into blending this into the whole child approach in your district of making sure that these habits are ingrained in everything you're doing school-wide and district-wide, really K-12, and the thoughtfulness behind how you're doing the academic meetings versus the social emotional behavioral meetings. I guess I have a question as I listen to that and thinking about kind of case management and communication off of those between those two different teams and what systems you all have in place to make sure that there is effective streamlined communication and nothing ends up being in a silo, to make sure that that nothing kind of falls through the cracks. I'm just curious about that.
That's an excellent question. So our school counselors are gods and goddesses of the school. You know, they run everything. So they participate in both the meetings. And so they are the liaison, if you will, that communicates the information shared at both. And the difference too with the SEB meetings is that we ensure that our school psychologists are present, and any service provider that might be. We have a teen talk at our school, so they come to the SEB meetings as well. And so they are really able to give a lot of guidance as well as suggestions to the teams in the areas of social emotional needs. And then I'm there for the kind of the behavior side of things. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you. That makes perfect sense. And I agree. The social workers, they run everything behind the scenes, right? We can't do our job as classroom teachers, administrators, without them. So that resonates for sure. Other questions coming up for folks. Kari, Jay, my other colleagues I know on the call, everybody, what is bubbling up for you as you listen to this? How can you envision this helping in your own context? What
Are
questions
you
do you
back
have
now
for
or no?
Christine
Like, what's
and
the
or
story?
Jamie?
'Cause I didn't think you were, and then I.
And I do see a question in the chat. Thank you. Yes, these documents, everything, this slide deck is available for everyone in real time. It is linked in the deck. And yes, thank you so much for actually sharing those sheets in the slides. I think that's really helpful so people can potentially adapt to their own local context and use that. Kari, I see you just came off mute.
Oh, I want to thank Christine and Jamie. This is wonderful. I really love the alignment with the MTSS, and so much of this will help impact attendance and students' confidence in going to school. But I wonder, are there any other schools or districts or folks on here who have done a similar kind of practice that they might want to share how it worked for their district?
Christine, I'm curious if with your work through CES doing this and spearheading this work, do you have a sense of other districts that are using this, how they might have implemented it, and any differences as compared to what Jamie has shared from Ridgefield's practice?
Yeah, really good question. I think that the reason why I invited Jamie to join this conversation is because I think Ridgefield, this approach is really unique. Many of the other districts that we are working with aren't this comprehensive and the systematic approach to really embedding this SEI, framework into MTSS and really using this as a way to, like I mentioned before, stop using terms like target behaviors and bad behaviors and behavior problems, and really kind of flipping everything upside down and looking at students as these whole individuals that need to develop certain skills and habits. And if we support them to develop these skills and habits, then we will get better behavior in the classroom as a result. Lots of the other districts that I work with are accepting that or embracing that, I should say, as a kind of a theory of action. But we haven't yet seen a few other districts are making sure we're using data to very systematically understand and plan and progress monitor for students. But the way Jamie's brain works in creating this very comprehensive system is pretty unique.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would say that it really stemmed from me needing a structure. It felt like a kind of a lonely island. When I was first in this role, it was called the MTSS Behavior Lead, and I was hopping between two different middle schools, and so there was no other behavior intervention as far as interventionist as far as MTSS goes, that I could kind of bounce ideas off of. So Christine swooped in and we developed a subcommittee so that we could kind of develop a structure in place so that we are able to now guide our teachers and our colleagues within the process.
I just wanted to mention, I haven't had an opportunity to formally meet Jamie before, but I certainly know Christine very well, and I know her because of her expertise in leading our school psychology COP. And one thing that I want to mention is I love when so many of our great initiatives kind of start cross-pollinating, and to see Christine here talking about this at our attendance venue, and it just reminds me how important it is that we all keep in mind that no initiative is isolated, and when we're working on attendance, who else can we access? Who else can we bring in? Who else can help us with that work? And where else can attendance move out into the school and assist other areas? So I just want to kind of make sure everybody's realizing those connections, how important they are. As soon as I saw Christine's face this morning, I thought, oh gosh, this is so great that this work is continuing to cross over.
Here she is again.
No, you're too funny. But no, love having you here. And as I said, I hadn't had an opportunity to officially meet Jamie, and she did a great job. But I love the way this work cross-pollinates itself, and we can't do it in isolation. So
it's so true. Thank you, Jay, for naming that. I agree. Kari has heard me say many, many times when we're doing any sort of big picture attendance and engagement work that it is the heart of what we do as educators. And if we don't have our students showing up and having them in the seats in our buildings, that everything else we do well is all for naught. So absolutely, cross-pollination, intersection, interrelationship of the work we do as educators is so critical, and it really does come back to the heart of attendance and engagement. So thank you so much, Christine and Jamie. Really excellent content. I love everything you shared. I'm seeing chats or comments in the chat that folks are excited to bring this back to their teams. I know those sheets are linked in the slide deck for our participants, and we will also push out these slides to all registrants later on this week, perhaps even today. So if there are no more questions, I think we just had one more slide to note that we have our upcoming session. If we could go to the next slide, please, Jared. Our next session is on December 16th. And we are going to be hearing from a panel of experts from two different school districts. We have Regional District number 14, which is Bethlehem and Woodbury, and we have our colleagues from Bridgeport Public Schools sharing about their recent attendance successes as we compare data from last October to this October. So hopefully you'll be able to join us next time. And for those of you who are getting winter weather today, have a safe rest of your day. And thank you all very much for being here. Thank you again to Christine and Jamie, and we look forward to seeing everybody next time. Thank you all. Take care.